goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, a podcast for wedding creators where we sit down, often with special guests, and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry so you can learn from us and grow your wedding business. And who are we? Well, I'm Simon, and this is Greg Eliath, the colossal cinematic titan. Together, we are Cinemate Films, two Scottish-based wedding filmmakers who love nothing more than drinking coffee and talking shop with others in the wedding industry. This episode is, of course, sponsored by With Jack, but I will get onto that a little bit later in the show. Greg, good morning. Who are we talking to today?
We are talking to Becky from Belle Art Photography. Hello, how are you?
Hey, Becky.
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank
Very well. I'm just going to pour the coffee.
Well, you're doing better than me with that amount of coffee because I literally have a pint of water in a Guinness glass.
Yes.
No coffee at this time in the morning?
I already had a coffee. I can't have too much, I'll be jittery.
Is that clean enough? Is that clean enough for you, that glass? Is that all right?
I rinsed it out earlier.
We like our coffee black and in dirty glasses.
So before we get into it, for anyone who's not aware of you, why don't you give us a quick intro as to who Becky is and what you do?
Okay, well, I guess my business name is Belle Art Photography, and I did start out as a wedding photographer in the UK, kind of traveling all around doing destination weddings, and that was back in 2016. And then for the last kind of 4.5 years, I've been based on the Isle of Skye in Scotland, and that 2020 kind of saw a massive pivot into elopements, and I kind of jumped on that bandwagon then, and ever since that's what I've been doing, and it has gone really well. I think the kind of turning point was when I started doing like all-inclusive elopement packages up here, and so that's mainly what I do now. I didn't actually expect it to kind of go that way initially, but you just kind of have to follow the flow of everything, and so that's what I'm doing. I've got 3 kids, and they're crazy, and hopefully they will not join us at any point in this podcast, but I cannot guarantee that because it is the school summer holidays.
Oh, so your kids are still off school. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, until I think we've got like about 4 more days.
So not too long. All right, okay. So, just because my kids went back yesterday. So
did they?
Yeah.
Glasgow schools went back then, yeah.
Yeah. So it was which was quite interesting because my eldest is now taking that leap into high school. So lots of big emotions. Yeah, it was interesting. So it was. But
did he like his first day?
He did.
Yeah.
He did like it.
Good.
When I asked, does he want to go back? He said no, but still, I think that's just par for the course. Every child's answering after the summer holidays, like, no, I don't want to go back to school. I think that's pretty normal, right?
Yeah. My nieces are down visiting just now, and they go back on their birthday up in Aberdeen. And one of them was like, I'll be sick by then. I was like, I don't think you will.
I feel like it's better to go into school on your birthday, get a lot of attention.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So when you got into weddings originally, what drew you to doing that?
Well, basically, I think I'd always kind of had it in my mind when I studied fine art at Newcastle Uni, and I did a year in Germany in the middle of that, and I was actually seeing a guy who was a wedding photographer. And so I think that kind of first put it in my head. And then I came back and did my final year in Newcastle and thought, well, you know what? I need some extra money to go out with. So I advertised on Gumtree. And I did like a few like city centre weddings with, I think I had like a Nikon D7, what was it? D3-100 or something at the time. That was like my camera that, oh no, actually I think I had migrated to Canon by then, 7D. So I had that, and I did them for like 50 quid.
Yeah, weddings for 50 quid. Woofed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That definitely is for some drinking money, as a student.
It is. But I would be paid in cash, and then I'd go out after and feel like a baller in the club.
Yeah.
So, 50 quid went a long way in Newcastle when trebles were only £2 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Had you?
So that was my glamorous entrance into wedding photography. But it kind of stayed like that. I didn't see it as I didn't see the possibilities of it being a full-time career. And so quickly after my graduation, we moved back to Germany, me and my partner then, and I was teaching English. But then I got pregnant unexpectedly with my daughter Belle, hence the name. So we moved back to the UK, and it was after that because I kind of was on maternity leave for a little while and working in hospitality, and it wasn't really working. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to give it a go and see if I can make this a real thing. So I quit my hospitality job and started advertising for weddings. And I kind of, in my head, this was like in the January, and I was like, if I can't make enough money, I'll do a teaching course in the September. So I kind of lined that up, and I was like, this will be my backup, and I'll just try. And yeah, it went surprisingly well that year.
And you were still doing quote unquote like normal weddings, like city weddings. Okay.
Yeah.
You did.
So like all the ones around, that's when it kind of took me around like London. Like I kind of went wherever I could in terms of weddings. And then, I don't know if you guys felt it too, but that draw to destination weddings is being like the thing that you do because it's so glamorous and you get to travel to all these beautiful countries. So I really tried to hone in on that for a little while.
When like what year would this have been when you were trying to do that?
2017, 2018.
Okay.
Around that time.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. Like I guess looking back now, I wouldn't have made nearly any money going and doing these destination weddings. And the logistical stress of like getting there and getting to venues in different countries, it wasn't as glamorous as it looks. But
you almost have to make those mistakes of pricing destination weddings to learn, because like our first destination one, we turned up and we're like, we are not making enough profit on this, like with the travel costs that we've had to pay for two of us, car hire, and then you're like, look at the cost of this wedding, and our profit's like probably tiny. But that was like, I mean, that was 13.
Was that the Facebook wedding?
Yeah.
Was that our first one? Yeah. So our first destination was in Italy in a place called Ilboro, and they had their own like medieval village in the estate.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of the 5 original creators of Facebook, and it was just like it was a very hard slap in the face. Not like it just clearly young boys who were creative but not business minded at that stage.
Yeah.
And it was the first like, oh, we should have thought about this a little bit more.
They were taking a risk on us though as well. Like back then, having not traveled for a wedding, they knew that, and they were like, yeah, we like your work and we want to pay for you to come over. And it was like, all right, cool. But back when you were doing those weddings, did the company as Belle Art start straight away from that, named after your daughter, or did that name come around later on?
No, I pretty much started that straight away. I started an Instagram for it in 2016, and then made a little website, amateur website with it. And I think the first thing I did was create like leaflets and hand them around the estate that we were living on to try and offer like family shoots and couple shoots and things like that. Again, for £50. I don't know what it was about the £50. I think like starting out price. Thankfully, I grew from there because otherwise I would not be profitable right now. So yeah, I did that for a while. thankfully I got like a few quite cool, like bigger weddings that I like submitted to publish in some of, you know, like Whimsical Wonderland weddings and Love My Dress. Yeah. And I think like that was a kind of turning point again of like starting to get more bookings, and I got to know the like all of the different photographers around the area that I was in, and we had a really good group and lots of referrals and things like that. And I think like knowing that, like having that community early on with other photographers was like amazing, because otherwise it's such a lonely job.
Yeah.
And I think it's really nice what you can create, like not, you know, community over competition. And I've always kind of carried that with me from the very start. And I think that's genuinely helped my business grow like massively.
Yeah.
I was just checking if Whimsical Wonderland weddings, if the blog was still going, and it is. So that's nice to see.
Yeah,
that's nice to see. I haven't kept my eye on the pulse of any blogs at all.
Yeah,
for maybe about 5 years. So yeah, how are you, blog owners? Are you still thriving? Are you okay? Is everything well? I'm an ignorant video person who doesn't know.
It's definitely harder for you guys with video, right? Though to be published in these blogs.
Yeah,
you might get a little mention at the end. Is that right?
Yeah. Like, maybe a video link at the bottom of the page, like at the very bottom, under the header.
Tiny little.
There's been times in the past where like a blog's reached out and been like, "Oh, we love this film. Can we share it?" And then they've said, "Okay, now we're going to reach out to a photographer to get their images," and they've maybe not been as cooperative or not been bothered about sharing it or anything. You're like, "Oh, you're not going to share it now because you can't get the photos. Come on."
Yeah. So, hey, if you are a photographer out there and you do like blogging your work or trying to submit your work, definitely try and assist your video people, because it's so much harder for us to do it the other way. I think that's maybe why I stopped looking at blogs, because I was just like, they just don't. I felt that they didn't care.
Didn't appreciate us.
They didn't care about us, Greg.
There's always been like this little subtle rivalry between photographers and videographers, though, hasn't there? Even though, you know, I think as someone who works in both, I feel like, not that I don't, there's only been a few times that I've purely done videography and I've been working with a photographer. So I don't really know your pain but I can sympathize a little.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think we're just two different beasts, aren't we, really? I mean, you can overlap, but I think if you're drawn to video, you're definitely, you've made up your mind to do it, because it's there's so many more elements to it, I personally find. But that's just me. And I'm not saying there's anything better or worse, because sometimes I've thought about moving to photos, if I'm honest. I've thought about it. Sounds like great fun. Yeah. But then
sometimes I've been drawn to moving purely to video. It's like that. I really like both. I worked with both when I was studying fine art, and so I think photography for me was like, I don't know, more straightforward. Like that's how you get into weddings. It wasn't until later that I, like a couple of years down the line of doing that I kind of remembered my love for film, and also saw if I could make it work with both. And
the balance for me is wanting to create something super stylized, but then at the same time realizing that this is still a wedding. It's not like in my film sets. So it's very much that balance of trying to create something as unique as I can, but still be able to have your family watch it and understand what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like the fine line between like being like an artist and a service provider in a way, because we're creating something, you know, I mean, it's given to be subjective, but it has to be for them. It's not for us, you know. I think when you come into this industry, I don't know about everyone, but you definitely have this thing that you want to create like original content, and you kind of want to follow trends, you want to get noticed, and it's almost like you go into it with these images of what you want to create that's going to, stand out and help you grow, and rather than thinking about it like from their perspective and what they want. And it's only from doing it that you learn that over time how, it's I think you can still create little bits for yourself, but I think, it is about them. It's their wedding day. So
in fact, I saw a blog post recently. I think it was anonymous. I'm not sure, but it was this person who was feeling like they were more a service provider because they weren't hearing back from their clients after delivering their gallery and stuff like that. And that's tough. So it is a tough balance between the supplier and artist, I suppose. But you were shooting normal weddings in 2016, 2017. What then changed that made you decide to move to a completely different location and start doing more elopements? Was it like a very quick decision, or was it something that, you traveled up to Skye, you shot your first elopement, you fell in love with it, you holidayed there? Like, was it a soft graduation there, or?
Well, funnily enough, the first time that I came to Skye in 2018, me and my husband Arif, like, he came up with me because I was pregnant at the time, and I had like this engagement session that I'd been booked for, and I kind of wanted to go because it was very like all over Pinterest at the time, like Isle of Skye. And I literally got to Portree, which ironically is the place we live now, and like looked around and said to Arif, who would live here?
Really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
because it was like late November, everything was shut. It was like so quiet, like, and I would have classed myself as a city girl through and through at that point. So I was just like, this is strange. But then I did the shoot the next day, and kind of we drove up to the Kerrang, and it was an amazing moment to see it all. Like, it's pretty mesmerizing, the landscape. But I still wouldn't have said that I'd fallen in love with it. But I did fall in love with elopements in general. And again, that was 2018 when I did my first one. And that was the first time I'd ever been to the Scottish Highlands.
Okay.
And this was a couple who had found me. They were based down in Guernsey, and they were going to like close to Glencoe. And she had messaged me, and she loved my work, and she wanted to have like a really small ceremony. They had a couple of friends with them. They just booked this Airbnb that was like on this little lock. And so, this was like the first wedding that I'd ever done like this. Like, I was so used to, hundreds of suppliers, like booking like years in advance, like, all of this kind of like high maintenance, big wedding stuff. And she was like, yeah, we're just like, the woman who owns the Airbnb is going to cook for us. And I was like, wow, like you can get, and they had a celebrant. I hadn't even worked with like a humanist celebrant before. So I drive down this road in the Highlands, and I thought I'd taken a wrong turn. I had no signal. Like, you're going down this tiny road for miles and miles. And it was just the most beautiful ceremony. Like, I never knew things could be so personal. I never knew that, the ceremony was not, it wasn't religious, nor was it really quick and legal. It was just very personal. And I'd not seen that before. It was raining outside. They didn't care. I loved it. And I think it was the first time that I could have considered getting married myself, because I actually, when I'd go to big weddings, I always felt like, I don't know, maybe my whole family dynamic didn't really fit into the traditional family, and we wouldn't have been able to do all of the, the traditions that you have. And I feel like that sometimes draws attentions to loss and grief. And then you've got this day that's all about, you, and almost felt a bit like a performance to me anyway. I know it suits some people. So that's just not what I wanted to do. And I think when, something just kind of aligns with your own views, it just felt right. So when I came back from there, I did feel inspired, and that's what I wanted to do then. I just not that I didn't want to photograph big weddings, I just knew I wanted more elopements. And so that naturally led me back up to the Highlands frequently. And me and Arif got married in 2019 in Loch Tay in Perthshire. And that was like November 2019. And I remember sat in like this Airbnb that we had booked for our humanist ceremony. And I was like, why are we living in a city when we could just live here, like around this area, and I could work from here and I wouldn't have to travel so much anymore? Because we had 2 kids by that point, and that's quite, it's quite hard to travel around for these like destination weddings. And I had spent that last year kind of balancing like breastfeeding with a tiny baby and going to these big weddings. I could tell you some stories, but so that was the decision to move, and we moved then in the March.
Okay.
So it was quite a quick turnaround then, just a few months later.
And had your view of Portree changed since that first time? Or was it a little bit more challenging?
No, I mean, bear in mind we moved 2 weeks before lockdown.
So maybe a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, it was. And we did have a fun I say fun. It was fun in hindsight because it was beautiful weather and we did explore a lot. But in reality, in the moment, I was really worried about money and business and everything. But yeah, I guess my view on Portree and everything changed slowly over the last 4 years. We actually didn't, I feel like I say this all the time, like we didn't pick Skye. Skye kind of picked us. It was like, we were looking around Glencoe for houses and things. And then I posted on some Facebook groups and this woman rang me that owned this house. And they really needed to move like really quickly. So like, could we come and rent it? And so we did. And then we ended up buying it in lockdown. But it's just like, when things just kind of happen and quite easily, it's like almost, meant to be, I guess, if you want to say that.
I'm always intrigued by the idea of island life on Skye. Because obviously, when I took my wife up there, she fell in love with it, much like I did. But I'm from the borders, so not quite as city as my wife Lindsay. She hasn't left the city much.
Right.
But I keep trying to tell her that island life is very different than city life. Would you agree, or am I being dramatic?
I wouldn't say dramatic. Okay. There's definitely changes. What I would say is Skye feels very much like the mainland because it's got the bridge. And I imagine if we were going back 10, 15, 20 years, it would feel a lot more remote. But having gone to the Outer Hebrides and spent more time out there, I feel like that's island life.
Island life, yes.
And that is something I don't think I could do. Yeah. Like, I like it. Like, it's beautiful and it's peaceful. But then I do feel that kind of isolation. But I don't feel like you get that on Skye because at least when you want to leave at any point you can. But then you also don't have the kind of like vibrancy and the buzz of a city. And in the winter people hibernate and it is dark here. Like I really do not enjoy the winter here. Like honestly, like in the winter here you'll see me like on Rightmove every single day. Like get me off this island.
No. You mentioned community though, over competition. Is there, like, we know a good few photographers up there, but do you guys hang out together at all? Do you do stuff together, or do you just never? It's this online chat and I'm shooting at the Krang today. What's everyone else doing? Like, what's the vibe there?
It's definitely more online chat. Like we have a little group that for people that regularly shoot on the Kerrang and stuff to try and like manage the traffic. Because it has become like that a little bit. But No, I'd say like I've got some really good friends here that are photographers. Like some of my best friends here are. But you know, so we hang out like naturally as friends. But as a, I think it's just like one of those places that I feel like people hibernate a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or
Keep the self to the self.
do-
Sounds good to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm quite, it depend. I feel like I'm quite a social person, so sometimes I find that hard.
Yeah, I think I probably would do as well, because I quite like being social as well.
Yeah. How, like you mentioned, the struggle of sort of 2018, 19, traveling up and down with 2 children.
Yeah.
You've now obviously got 3 children. So now you've been in Skye for 4 years or so. How's that balance now? Is the sort of work-life balance and everything settled a bit more?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the thing on Skye is, and it is a genuinely like slower pace of life, which I do like. And, you know, my husband now kind of works in my business, but we can spend a lot of time hanging out, and I have a lot of hobbies. Like we do like trail running and stuff like that. And so in terms of life work balance, this has been the best year for that, I think. Like this, but you know, I think I do kind of miss I do miss the traveling a little bit. I miss the exploring new places. It can, even though every couple's different, it, you know, when you're shooting at the same places over and over again, it's hard to see it from a new perspective.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I feel like in order to get some kind of new creativity or something, I need to break it up. I need to do something different. What's helped is I've been asked to go to like a few different workshops over the last few years, which has been really nice. It's meant that I've met other photographers from all over the world, and shot in new places. And I think that is so important in our work, is to kind of keep feeling inspired. And otherwise, you know, and I felt it, and I don't know, maybe you have, but I felt burnout before yeah. And because it can get busy, you have seasons, and here the seasons are a little different to when I did big weddings, because we'll have like a really busy spring season and then really busy autumn, but summer kind of like drops down a little bit. But yeah, it's tough going when you're like on like a bit of a, I don't know, a cycle, like, I don't know, every day.
Yeah. I get that. I get that. Just when you mentioned trail running there, you didn't do. I mean, this is very much a massive trail, but did you do the Skye Ultra 75-mile thing?
No,
Okay.
I would like to do that, but I'm not at that level yet.
Okay.
Not
Just because the course looks absolutely stunning. I mean, just running around Skye would be awesome.
yeah.
But yeah. The your pals as well that are did you say there were other photographers that you're friendly with?
Yeah, like David Connaty.
Oh yeah, cool.
Your fellow Geordie.
Yeah, I feel like he's one of our best pals up here.
Nice.
And then there's lots of lovely people, like other photographers as well. But I would say, you know, like we see each other like weekly, and our kids go to the same school, and they're like similar ages, so just like naturally we've become good friends.
Yeah, that's cool. So I want to talk more about your style.
Okay.
So you describe your work as darkly evocative and beautiful. What about your work makes it so?
I think the beauty easily comes with the landscape.
Yeah.
And then the kind of like darkly evocative, so I've always been drawn to, I guess, like darker, more intimate. Like the reason why I love it here is because it's often quite dramatic and cloudy, moody. And like, even when I studied fine art, in terms of like painters and things, I always loved the kind of more dimly lit, like kind of Rembrandt style, like even like, one of my favorite painters was Freud, but like always drawn to darker, muted tones through painting. And then, I guess that kind of naturally led on to what I liked in photography. So like closeness, dark, deep, like black and white, and then like the shadows, like, yeah, I guess that's what makes it like that. And for me, it's all about capturing a couple's connection and their just the way that they are together. And a lot of that just comes, it sounds really weird, but just like from watching and seeing how, like quite closely seeing how people interact, to kind of get a sense of who they are and how they are with each other before I then, capture that. And the good thing is, having built up a portfolio over the years, is that it's the right kind of people that see my work and book that want that too, and that are like that. So, suddenly it becomes easy to get the right kind of clients, and easy to create that work.
Tell us a bit more about, like, because you mentioned that you're doing like full service elopements now. So like what does the process look like between you and a couple when you're sort of planning and setting out to shoot a elopement?
So the process, it's Elope with Belle that I called the package that then became the name of the company, like the limited company. And it's actually now it's become quite a simple process, in the sense that I had someone work with me last year who created a full kind of workflow on Dubsado, and a lot of things are automated, which makes my actual kind of work-life balance great. But the process is that they will book the package. Oftentimes I find that most people can book without even having a phone call or video call beforehand. So then I send through like a welcome box, a questionnaire, and they fill that out. And this questionnaire just gets like everything that they, elicits all these answers about how they imagine their day, and just more insight into how they met and all of the things that could be important to them. And then I use that to book their accommodation, celebrant, flowers, hair and makeup, basically everything that you would need for a package. And I've built up really good relationships with suppliers on Skye. So there's lots of little details that go into it, that kind of make a better experience for them. And in doing this process, it allows me to get to know them more, like everything about them, because usually just as a photographer, you wouldn't necessarily need to know their full backstory of how they met. And, and people give a lot of detail. Like you hear a lot of like really deep insights into their lives. And I think that definitely helps feel like a closer connection to them. So by the time the day comes, like I'm like their best friend. Like it's great.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, when you talked about, when you first went and did elopements, and you'd hear that story and you saw it being more personal, it's clearly something that connects with you. Very, very much like us, to be honest. Like I love a humanist ceremony, just because, like you said, it's like it's that balance between the what could be a very non-personal, you're just signing something, blah blah, here it's done, and then something that's completely different in the other direction. But it sits very nicely in this very personal, this is actually why you guys are here with this decision that you've made to have this elopement, have your marriage. And it's a very nice personal story. So I like that. So it always gives a really nice, like not everyone puts a wedding ceremony in a wedding film. Strangely enough, usually it's just the vows. But when you're having all that kind of personal stuff in there, it's very easy to incorporate more of a ceremony. Other than the things that you'd otherwise put in there as a wedding filmmaker.
Have you got any like standout, memorable elopements that just jump to your mind that you're always sort of thinking of?
Yeah, I guess there's always like a few a year that stand out, and whether that be, usually it's the person that I felt like a particular, well, the people that I felt like a particularly deep connection with. There was one last summer of a couple who I loved, and it was just like this crazy heat wave on Skye, which is unheard of. People were calling it Hotland instead of Scotland because it was like last June. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Anyway, I had this, like, when you just meet people and you just like get on so well, like you would have been friends for years. And we had the funnest like day, and like we hiked up, we were all sweating, like they were just like laughing the whole day, and we ended by like I took them to this waterfall, but it was so hot, so they just got in and ended up swimming like in their
awesome
like wedding attire, and I was like going in to try and photograph them, but then I was like, fuck it. Oh, sorry, I should probably swear.
You can swear.
Put my camera down and just joined them and started swimming
brilliant.
as well.
Amazing.
And then that meant I had to go and sort out their meal in this restaurant, and I was just like completely soaked. I hadn't really thought it through. And I had to just walk through this restaurant like dripping wet.
That's hilarious.
But yeah. Days like that kind of stick in my head.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
It does sound good. It does sound good.
I feel like, elopements allow for a bit of spontaneity and, like mixing things. I mean, you have to think on your feet, because sometimes it's the complete opposite and the weather is literally completely against you, like this full on storm, but it means that, you can change the plan, you can just kind of roll with it. It's great.
Yeah. So how then do you balance all of that kind of spontaneity with the epicness of the landscape, and then obviously the intimacy of such a personal event in a couple's life? Like, how do you balance all of that?
It's actually quite hard, and I think quite honestly, I do end up coming back from an elopement like that sometimes feeling like absolutely drained, because I've worn a lot of hats in the day.
Yeah.
And I think even though people are eloping, and people generally who elope seem to be quite relaxed about everything and happy to kind of go with the flow, there's still that societal pressure and element of perfectionism in any kind of wedding.
Yeah.
And so the day before an elopement, I always still feel quite nervous, and it's not to do my job. It's that because I can't control everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, I can't control the weather. I can't control if they, their flights have been delayed, just little things like that add up to their whole experience. And I feel responsible for their experience. So it's actually quite a lot. And it's seen me question if I should keep doing this, but then I'll get a day like we just spoke about, and it suddenly feels right, and it's 100% worth it. But the balancing is something that will always have to be worked on. I don't think it's ever going to be right, but in terms of like photographing and filming, for me, it kind of feels like so second nature. So really it's just about, I always say like experience first, photos after. So for me, it's about creating the most relaxed, like calming environment for my couples, and taking them to the places that I know, like giving them, praying that the weather plays, plays along and they have an amazing ceremony. And then from that, the photos and the video will show that kind of thing.
Yeah. The reason I asked that was because I think, in speaking with so many other newer photographers, they're kind of intimidated with this idea of just being alone with the couple. If it's just them and there's not a video person. Even for videographers, they find this challenging. It's like the balance in their portfolio to just not have it all seem like it's just the couple all the time. So yeah, like
Well-
do you have like any piece of advice for those people who are thinking that it might be harder than a wedding?
It's definitely different from a wedding. I mean, I could spend like up to 8 hours with a couple by myself with them and driving them around and feeling a little bit like a tour guide, like talking about different places and things. But for most couples, like, I feel like in order for them to give you a lot, you have to give up a bit of yourself as well. And if, you know, I've always had a close connection with couples, it's because they've known more about me and they feel relaxed, and we've been able to talk about lots of, I don't know, from like deep life existential crisis to books to art to everything, and, you know, families and things like that. And I always find that with elopements couples, they sometimes come from quite like difficult family situations, or like the reason why they're eloping is perhaps because, you know, I don't know, we've dealt with plenty of difficult situations, so there's always like a sense of vulnerability there. I feel so it can be quite it's a lot to be with people like that, to still be professional, to do your job, but also kind of let them in. And but I guess my advice would be to like have a plan for, you know, where you're going to go. Like I say, like I break down that amount of time that I'm with them, say like 4 or 5 hours. On average, probably I'm with them for about 5 to 6 hours. And the first bit, you know, you've got like kind of a buffer with like potential hair, makeup, and it's like talking about the ceremony. Then you've got like to the ceremony with the celebrant. And that's when I'll kind of like offload them onto the celebrant. You know? So it's like I don't need to perform, or I can give them to someone else to look after them for a little while. And then the rest of it, it's like if you have like an activity, like you're hiking or you're on a boat or they have a picnic, it's like having these things to kind of break up the day, and also allowing them to be by themselves without you for a little bit as well, which actually I think most couples need, because, you know, they've come away to get married on their own. So it's okay to leave them alone for a little bit as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What was that? What was that company that did the tent? Fox Retreat?
Sky Red Fox.
Red Fox Retreat. One of the last elopements that we shot, they had created like a little tent area with their cake and everything. And that was like the perfect opportunity to leave the couple be. And they actually had a room. They had a tent to be, they had to be private.
So I pretty much organize that for like every elopement, because then that gives me time to like, we'll also go and have like a sandwich myself, because Alex is very nice and she usually makes me a sandwich too. And even if it's just going to sit in my car and eat the sandwich and scroll and just have like a bit of like, to like recharge your batteries to like go and do it again. And by that point they've had like a bit of champagne and stuff, and they're like, let's jump in the river. So it's so much easier.
Thinking about like that time, so you're creating an environment in the car or whatever when you're traveling around with them, but thinking more about when you're out making photographs, you're at a location, you've hiked somewhere and got there. What are you doing to help like add to that comfortable and sort of relaxing atmosphere that you were talking about? Like, what techniques or how are you interacting with the couple at that sort of section of the day?
So I would say that I don't overly pose people, and I tell them that for me it's about taking them to the place and I'm getting the light and the landscape right, and then I will, like, if I have a particular idea in my head, say there's like, for example, there's like a fallen down tree and I want him to sit on it and her to like lie. I like tell them this idea for this amazing photo is almost like they're collaborating in it. And then I'll help them get into the position, but then I'll leave them for a bit, because what I see when I see potential new photographers sometimes is that they feel that they have to, one, work really quickly, move around a lot, and get lots of different angles, and to make sure that they're like a couple almost like entertained. What I find effective is to leave them quite a bit longer. So because initially when someone's put in a pose, they need to find like how they're comfortable with it, and it's only after even like a minute or so that people start to like naturally interact with each other, like they do things because they feel a bit more comfortable. And it's those photos that I find work and are more powerful and more about what, like them than anything that I would have shot before that. So for me, it's actually about giving time. And I'm the same with like, if I feel like they're nervous, then I'll get them to move a bit more, like walking, dancing. And I'm like, let's just play with it. And the landscape kind of and the elements kind of help with that sometimes, because if it's like raining and windy, you have to be a bit quicker. So you're like, oh, run against the wind and like pick her up to all around and like all of this stuff. And but if I want these like slow, intimate shots, I'll start further back and like get them to like really squeeze each other or something when they're cold, and I'm like really like keep each other warm and squeeze, and then like I'll just be waiting like so that they're in it for like a couple of minutes sometimes, as long as it's not Baltic and they're gonna freeze to death.
Yeah,
I'll just like slow it down and take my time with it. And I think that kind of confidence to do that comes after a while, because it's almost like you know what you're doing, and they're not really going to second guess it. They don't know what they're doing. So they're just, I think, and reassuring people that if they need it, that they look great. And people are different. Like some people have been in front of the camera a million times and they really know how to almost perform to it, and other people are really nervous and they've never. And I mean, I like working with both. It's fun. It's just about bringing out their kind of personality a little bit and giving them confidence.
Is there anything that you have like in your bag or any tips and trips for like dealing with the unplannable sections of an elopement?
I mean, dry robes for warmth.
Yeah,
I've got some branded dry robes. So nice. I have about 8 of them, so that I can like but like I've had like a whole team wear them before, like the celebrant and stuff, just because the weather can get pretty. So basically, I feel like as long and snacks as well, so warmth and food.
Yeah.
If people are not hungry and they're not cold, they're generally okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I think we always used to keep hand warmers on us all the time, like in my pocket. I mean, we do have towels and stuff, but I think a lot of photographers have the dry robe covered, which is quite cool. But just to offer that extra heat for when you're walking places can be quite essential, I find.
Yep.
And hot water bottle in the car.
Oh yeah,
that can be
great idea. Do you, going back to something you said when you were in the car, when you're with a couple and you're opening up, like how deep are you going? Like, are we talking about like suffering from existential dread or like those kind of conversations?
It depends on the couple.
Okay.
It's like a bit of, with any conversation, it's like give and take. Like you give something, see what they're going to give back. And, and some people, we never go any further than like surface level conversations and stuff about Skye. And, I'll ask them like questions about, how happy they are where they live. Like, what kind, like, are they happy at their job? Like, what do they like doing? Like, are they close with their families? And just see how much people give. Like, and actually most people are like quite happy to have like deep conversations.
Yeah.
It's nice. I love getting to know people a bit more, and and I find surface level conversations eventually, like over and over again, quite draining.
Yeah. I think I'm the same. I quite like deep topics if I'm quite honest.
Yeah.
Which do you have like a belief of something that's like unusual or anything?
I wouldn't say that I do. And I'm a pretty open-minded person. And I don't like have, I mean, I was brought up Catholic, but I'm not. And I basically, as an example, I had an elopement where I was driving someone's uncle the other week because they were all in their big camper van. And we had amazing conversations about AI.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Where we ended up saying that we were all products. And then the guy was like, God, that got dark, didn't it? And I was like, I know. And then another conversation where I was saying that like living on Skye, I feel like the kids are constantly surrounded by just like not a lot, the majority white, like Christian, other kids and that kind of influence in school. And we don't love that really. And we wish there was more diversity on Skye. We wish that they were teaching about other religions, and we had to say no to them getting a Bible. I think we were the only person in the school that did. And it's just when you're quite open-minded, you're trying to teach your kids to be like that, living somewhere like this is quite hard. And we were having a conversation about that as well, because his kids had grown up in like Perthshire for a bit, and then they'd gone to New Zealand. It's always quite sheltered, and
I understand how difficult that can be. My kids are primary school and senior school now. They're both Catholic schools, but I'm a big old atheist, so it's like the balance. But it's when Nathan, who always likes to be included in stuff, was like, oh, I feel like I'm missing out by like not having mass. I'm like, I know, but if it's important to you, you can do it later on in life if you decide to, but you shouldn't just do that kind of stuff because everyone else is doing it type vibe. You did bring up something that I always think about. It's portfolio diversity, because you see a lot being talked about and how important it is, and it is really important, but it's also really, really difficult in Scotland because like all of our couples are white this year, I believe. And it's not like we don't often say no. In fact, this year when was the last time we said no to a wedding? When was the last time we actually said no? I don't want to do your wedding.
I don't think we've ever really said no to any.
Yeah. So it's not like we're choosing couple. We're not at a stage where we have the luxury of choosing couples. So it's other than personal projects or doing something like that to incorporate those kind of couples into our portfolio, which we also don't really do because I suppose again we don't have the luxury because I've got 3 kids. Greg's got extra 3 now.
Next week
3. So it's like it is challenging. What's your thoughts on that?
So I really pride myself in my business on like it being for like very pro equality and wanting couples to feel safe. So a huge ally to the LGBTQ plus community. And I have a lot of couples that are part of that community. And I feel like I've got them because one, I run workshops and I've run several over the last few years. And so I've always really thought about diversity within that. And that's how I've kind of got the portfolio.
Yeah.
And then because I feel like you do need to show that in order for people to see it and to feel safe. So that's what I have been doing. And I know it is hard with times and stuff, but I think for me, it's really important. And it's important. It's important that my couples come and elope here and feel like they're going to be safe and that I want people to come to my portfolio and see themselves. And that's quite hard if I'm just shooting heterosexual white couples, which a lot of them are. So then I have to go out of my way to shoot other couples.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done. So every workshop that I've ever ran, I've either used like an LGBTQ plus like couple, or I've used like a black couple or mixed race couple, or, you know, I've really tried to do that. In my work. And then what I do is, in terms of portfolio and then in terms of Instagram, I try to show those couples frequently so that people don't have to scroll too far down in order to see themselves.
Yeah.
And that means reposting the same work, sometimes the same couples over and over, but I will do that so that people feel like that when they come to my work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And the good thing is that with elopements especially, there's loads of different cultures that are traveling to Scotland to get married, so it's an easier way of getting the diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think that's one of the main things that I like about having our clients be a lot from overseas, that they bring their culture along with them, and it's like this big melting pot of traditions from where they're from, and Scotland traditions, or even not Scottish traditions, but they think they're Scottish traditions. Interesting. Yeah.
Everyone thinks they have it. Well, all of my clients, I mean, not saying that they don't, but they all have like ancestors who are like, that lived in Dunvegan Castle and things like
that. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm editing a wedding right now where the dad was like, this is a grand return for our family. 100 years ago, this person left to work here. Now we're back. I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your workshops. What's who are they for? What made you do them? And tell us, because I've been thinking about doing workshop stuff under this educational platform that is Perspective. So give us some tips as to how to do it.
So I feel like I built a lot of my portfolio in the beginning from workshops, and that really helped me get the clients that I wanted. So I always saw value in them. And when I didn't start, actually, it was before I moved to Skye. I did it with a good friend, Chris Parkinson. We created one called Dream a Dare, and it was in the Highlands. But it was for me making more elopement content. I wanted to show the possibilities that you could go to with elopements, the kind of ceremonies you could have, like, you know, like these barefoot, like creatures ambling around the hill. Anyway, it allows you to be like very creative and to mix with other people. And I must admit, right, the organizing of them I find stressful. Like, I do. And actually not so much the organizing, the marketing of them and the selling tickets. I don't know why I find it tricky. I do see that there's a value in it and I think they're good, but it's just like trying to sell all the tickets, taking on that financial burden, because, you know, I've booked like big accommodations that can house everyone, like chefs to come cook, and I really want to create like an amazing experience for people, but that comes with a price tag. And so that is hard, but honestly, like doing them is incredible. Like just spending like quality time with other creatives is amazing, and the models I've had have always been really fun, like up for anything. I mean, you kind of have to be here, and it's like a real like chance to, I think it gives you confidence. It gives you confidence like in your abilities, just being able to speak to other people and realize that your worries are similar to everybody else's, and feeling inspired and trying new things. And from that, you know, you can grow your portfolio and do things that you want to do for you, so that you don't have that feeling where you just feel like a kind of service provider. But yeah, I've tried different things with workshops, like day workshops. ones where people book their own accommodation, ones that have been fully all-inclusive with like a private chef and fine dining, because I love food. But I've actually taken a break this last year from them because I was finding I've just not been best friends with Instagram, and I find like social media marketing quite challenging, and I don't like spending too much time on there either. Like it doesn't do well for my creativity. It just also, I don't know, the constant like comparison and thing, I just don't think it helps you. Even though I know there's a good community on there. So you really have to dig to find it though, because you know, with AI, the stuff that you actually get now and that you see on your feed, it's not great. So trying to sell on something, it sounds like you're shouting into like a void now to try and things that I would say like years ago were quite easy to advertise are quite a bit harder now. So I've just taken a break from it for this year, and I've got a couple of workshops that I'm speaking at that other people have organized that I love, by the way, because that's like no pressure and like, like no pressure to actually organize anything. I just get to rock up and have like make friends and chat.
What are they, just so people can hear this and go, oh shit, that sounds great, I really want to book to see Becky?
So I'm going to Chris Parkinson. He has an amazing kind of retreat I think it's like classed as North Yorkshire, and it's called the Raptor Club, and he has always been a really good friend of mine. He actually photographed mine and Arif's wedding. And it's like, you know, you're staying in these like this incredible place called Kip and Nook that has like hot tubs, like amazing space. It's all very beautiful, and he's got quite a few different speakers that kind of cover a whole range of different things, from like marketing, business, and like really creative, like, you know, like kind of work like outside of weddings. So that's about like a kind of retreat. And then there's a female only retreat that I'm going back to speak at called Capture Love in Ireland, who's the photographer is like Lauren, so from Lit Photography. She's incredible as well. And I went there in March to speak and just had the most amazing time. I really connected with her. So I was so happy when she asked me to go back to Ireland. And it's nice shooting in Ireland because there's similarities with the Scottish landscape, but it's still different.
Oh, that's cool.
You mentioned that you've fallen out with social media. What like are you still using it to some extent? And if you are, like, what are you using it for? Because I think a lot of people are in that same camp where they're like, it's just posting into the void, and it almost feels like a waste of time, as opposed to like back in 2017 or whatever. So how are you using it just now, or are you completely off it now?
I'm not off it. Like I feel like there's kind of, I have to maintain it in a way, and it's something that's been with me since the start. So it's almost like I can't let it go completely, even though I'd say the majority of my bookings come from Google and referrals. I think it's more that the couples then that I have that follow me, or like, so it's like trying to stay connected to them and like giving them something to like look forward to, like a presence, you know. Otherwise I wouldn't have anything like that they could kind of follow along. So I probably do more stories than I do posts. I try to. Sometimes I'm like, Becky, you're going to post every day for a month. Then I do it for like 4 days, and then I'm like, I'm done. But I do the odd story, and I do like bits of Skye life and with the kids, and just so people can get to know me a little more. And I find that quite easy. Is, you know, I think more people see your stories, I think, than the stuff that you post. And I have tried Reels, I really have, but I don't have TikTok. I did for a little bit, and I just didn't enjoy it, and I didn't want another social media. And I know that you can get a lot from it if you like really pay attention and follow the trends and things like that, but it just doesn't sit well with me or something. I just don't enjoy spending loads of time trying to find out what's trending in order to then create the content. I feel like then I hate the thought that I'm creating content for that platform when I would sooner create for myself or for something that I don't know that could connect in a different way. Like if I enjoy writing and like creating work, and I would love to publish a book, and I would love to do like some exhibitions where people could come and you could like see the way that the art kind of challenged them in a way, rather than this platform that
Hey, I'm Ashley from With Jack. I'm one of the sponsors of the Perspective podcast. With Jack helps to keep photographers in business by supporting them financially and legally if they have problems with a client or they make a mistake in their work. We've all had that fear of our CF card or our hard drive failing and losing important photos. You can find out more at withjack.co.uk. Head over there and find out how we can help you be a confident creative.
I want to go back to this idea of enhancing a couple's experience. Because I always had that that post I mentioned earlier from that anonymous poster about feeling like they were more of a service provider. And we've spoken to a good few photographers recently about how they implement certain ways of, you know, bettering that back end experience, you know, the delivery experience for a couple. For example, John Dolan, he actually hand delivers, he travels across the country and hand delivers his printed images to couples. Now, obviously that's probably a step too far for the average Joe photographer. But then you had Rocio Vega, who makes sure that their couple, you know, they're both sitting down, and she then sends the link, and she's with them both, and they experience their slideshow together at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's a good balance between the John Dolan and you know, if someone's not giving any thought. Do you have anything that kind of elevates your experience on the back end, or is it more, you know, forward execution of an experience, and then the kind of like you kind of said earlier, experience first, photograph second? What's your kind of delivery system?
So from after a couple's elopement, I genuinely get a little preview for the next day. That's because also when people elope, sometimes it's in secret and they want to announce it, and I'd rather them do that with my images.
Yeah, of course.
So they know they're gonna get that, and then I always say it's going to take 6 weeks. It usually I try to deliver their gallery basically on their 1 month anniversary, like of the wedding. So I basically what I will try to do is send them their prints. So I send a selection of fine art prints, which has like a little thank you card, and it has a link to their gallery on it. So I try to get that to them, so that's what they could see their gallery before the email. And then the email goes out with the link to their gallery and their Super 8 film on that, just on the month anniversary. Yeah.
Are you, and when you send that email, are you very much focusing on that one anniversary, like even in the way that you write, it's like, here's your 1 anniversary, 1 month anniversary, I should say.
Yeah.
That's a focus for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, I would like to say that I always wanted to do more, like make sure that they are sitting down and they, I can send them their gallery, but with the time differences, like I can do that sometimes, and I have done it especially for UK couples, but most of my clients are from the US, Canada, Australia, and it's quite tricky, especially when you've got kids. Like I found that like it wasn't working for me to try and implement that into my workflow. Because I don't want to be working at all hours of the night. Like I'm quite strict with my times of working. I only have one evening that I even take calls. So that works better for me with having 3 kids.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely. And you definitely do need to set those boundaries and have them be a hard boundary sometimes, especially when you got kids. I have found.
Yeah.
Because the temptation is so there for a self-employed person to just be like, oh, my laptop's here, I'll just edit. I'll just no, it's terrible for me anyway.
Yeah.
I also don't think, like, so I know some people, which I think is amazing, that they'll show them like on video call, like their gallery or something, but I personally would hate that pressure to perform my reaction to something.
Yeah.
If you get me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I hate it when someone gives me a gift and they expect me to open it in front of them. I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah. I'm terrible at birthdays and Christmas when they're all like opening your presents and you're like, oh, do you have to look at me while I do
How
this?
much to ham this up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what?
Yeah. So
within your gallery, like what are you delivering to couples? You mentioned some Super 8 there. Like what's in a standard sort of typical package that you would deliver?
So I use PickTime for my gallery deliveries. So the first thing they'll see is a Super 8 film that comes up on the first one, and then underneath, like, is their gallery from the story. I really like the Super 8 as like an introduction to their gallery of with the music and everything. It kind of feels like a really nice way. I guess like a slideshow would be, but yeah. Super 8 has this really like beautiful way of rendering like color and just like it's quite raw and gritty, and I love it. I love it for their day. Try to make it all romantic, with the music and the words, and yeah.
Well, I mean, we haven't asked you about your film at all. Your films. Why don't we just talk about them for a little bit? So, why as a photographer do you even bother with the Super 8?
I mean, like I said, when I did find out, I actually preferred filmmaking to still photos. I found there was more like, I don't know, do you know, like the end, it's a harder slog to get to that final piece, but there's more satisfaction, I feel like, in that final product than this a still or a collection of still photographs. Perhaps it's different when they're printed, but as it goes for on a screen, I feel like there is more, and it's like, I don't know, like looking at my work back, like when it's an actual film, it feels like a final piece,
Yeah.
And I used Super 8 and 16mm in uni, and we had like, I borrowed film from the university, so I never had my own camera. And it was like first year of doing it, I went to a workshop, and I think his name was Mark. He was a guy from LA who purely did Super 8 films or weddings. And I was like, oh my God, I could do that. I could bring back the Super 8 and so I bought my first camera. And the first few ones, I just asked the couple if they would like a Super 8 film and could they cover the cost of the film.
Right.
And the processing for me to shoot it. And so that's how I built up a portfolio with it and got used to working with between both. But I actually feel like it's quite natural because some things are better for movement and others still.
Yeah.
And I can still kind of differentiate that quite easily in my head to like know what to shoot and how to balance the kind of 3 minutes that you get. So yeah, I keep it quite simple. Like it's just like a little like 3 to 4 seconds of each little of different moments that build up the story of their day to music.
Is that every couple gets that, or is that like an add-on feature for them?
So every couple with the Elope with Belle gets that, and then the photography packages I have, or the elopement packages, they choose photo only or photo and film.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. What is the Super 8 camera that you use? Because they're not the smallest of things, are they?
No, just seeing whether I can. So I used my 16mm a lot more, which is the Canon Scopic. It's the one that they used to use it for like journalism, so they'd get the scoop, hence the name. It's heavy.
Yeah.
It is like, like I have really good biceps now because I'm like holding that camera all day. I really do. And like sometimes I get like a pain in my elbow because I've like held it down too long. But anyway, and that camera's kind of stayed with me for the last 3 years, and it's been good, and I don't know how. Whereas Super 8 films, I go through them like a couple a year. So I've used like everyone you can imagine. They're all pretty similar, and they're quite automated.
Yeah. Was there not one just recently announced? Not announced. Actually came to market, like a brand new film stock film camera. Was there not a new one? Is it from Kodak?
There might be, but I know there's a company in LA that basically take them and they change things to make them better, almost like more modern, and you can buy them. They still take film, but they work better almost, if that makes sense. Like, I was intrigued by that, but I don't know the cost of that, and then or the films when the Super 8 films. I kind of like the like 70s kind of build to the cameras. I think they're great.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm very quickly trying to find it online.
Is it a movie camera you're thinking of, or stills?
No, a movie camera.
All right.
Yeah.
There was a Pentax 17 like half frame camera came out recently, but that was for stills.
That's very, very annoying. It will come to me at some point, I'm sure. I could have sworn it was Kodak, but never mind.
Do you ever use Super 8 or like film?
I've never done like film for video. I've only done some stills for personal work. Never played about with video and film.
No, the prices always scared me.
Yeah, it is expensive, and the same with actually like still film as well.
Yeah,
and I must look ridiculous when I'm photographing, because sometimes I'll have like my camera harness on with my digital cameras, like 2. I'll have the big like medium format Pentax 6-7 around my neck, and then I've got like a big 16mm camera in my hand, and completely weighed down by these choices of cameras. But I do actually really love cameras, like actually love them. Like I have well more than I need and could ever use at one time, but I will still buy more.
You can never have enough.
I am absolutely fucking adamant I'm going to find this thing, but sorry, I'll do this not on a podcast. Well, let's talk about something. Let's talk about something. I'm sorry. My poor show notes. Greg's gone through and changed all of them. Okay. So we talked about your packages, and we talked about your workshops, but I want to know, like, being where you live, and your couples that come over, like, what are you charging, and what is like the number of bookings that makes you feel safe, especially after when you moved up, COVID was a thing, and you had that summer where it was always on your mind. Like, is it still with you, that kind of like I've got to be safe?
Yeah, it definitely does, because my company is like the sole kind of earner for my family. Yeah. So I have to make enough money for everything. But I don't really know where I sit in regards to other people within Skye. I've just kind of always priced it, especially with Elope with Belle. I have to take into consideration the suppliers, all of their prices. So the Elope with Belle package is like £9,500 for everything. And that's just like grown and grown and grown each year. But as with, I have to check all the supplier prices, and I need to make a minimum amount, and obviously including VAT. Now, and then for my photography packages for elopements, the 4-hour package starts at £3,000.
Mhm.
And that's for photos, and to add video as well as an extra 1,000. And then it goes up with the different like hour packages that include longer, and because some things, I've done like some crazy hikes up to the top of the Cullen here. We've done like boat trips into the middle of the like a lock in the middle of the mountains, so it's really fun. But yeah, I can spend like, I think the longest I've spent with a couple is like about 12 hours.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
So, number of safe bookings.
Yes.
It's more, I do use Dubsado as my like CRM system.
Mhm.
And so I don't know whether it's the number, because it depends on how many, like the different ratio of bookings. So it's more about the amount of money, I guess, that I want to make, that I know that I need to pay us. But ideally it's probably sits around minimum 15 Elope with Belle packages.
Yeah.
And I kind of use that as my bread and butter, as like, that's what I need to get. And the elopement photography. And then I also do adventure and portrait sessions. They kind of come as an extra almost to like add into that income. The main thing that I focus on in terms of for income is Elope with Belle.
Yeah. Are those adventure sessions for just people who are traveling there for the fun of it, or is that an add-on to your elopement package, like the day before or whatever?
So I do have add-ons for that, for like day after sessions usually. But the adventure sessions are by themselves like a whole new proposal that is to do with, I have a lot of engagement shoots, honeymoon, like small vow renewals or proposals even, that I've done for them. And then the portrait sessions are for like solo, like fine art portrait sessions, maternity, and then also I've done like the odd like family photo shoot for people that are over here. Which I really enjoy actually. I don't advertise them as much, but these like kind of like shorter sessions, they're really fun. It's really nice.
Yeah. Do you have your own little studio that you shoot in your house, or do you rent somewhere for your portrait sessions, or do you just go out?
I do. It's a glorified shed.
Okay.
It's not even glorified. It's a shed.
It's a shed.
It's a shed. I haven't actually had any paying clients there. I've done a lot of projects in there, self-portraits and portraits for friends in there.
Cool.
Most of the portraits that I do are outside in the landscape. We have talked about building something here that would be more glamorous, that I would feel very comfortable bringing. Because at the moment I have to like turn the little heater on for like an hour before, and then like get rid of all the cobwebs that are in there. And so the thought of bringing like someone that's paying a fair, even though I know I can get really good photos in there, because it's got like the most amazing kind of like diffuse natural light. And like, so I know I can do well in there, but it just doesn't feel right to be like, come to my shed. A bit seedy, isn't it?
Only a little bit, if you word it like that.
Yeah. I feel like I'd have to give them like a realistic expectation, like, like of what to expect though. To be like, come to my portrait studio and then take them into my shed.
Again, quite suspicious, wouldn't it be? Yes. Do you have like flash gear in there and all sorts of like backdrops, or?
Yeah, so I have like kind of like oil painted backdrops. I have like a selection of different ones, and I do use like Pro Photo. So I'll often shoot with natural light, but I do have quite a few like setups, like quite simple setups with the Pro Photo, and that's I use with the portrait I shoot with Hasselblad, like the X1D. So that's what's linked to the Pro Photo in there.
Yeah,
cool.
So if someone's listening and they're like, you know what, I'm not scared of elopements anymore, I want to give them a try, what would be like the one piece of advice you would give someone trying to break into that?
it would be to do your research, basically, because... And on the location, so even now, when I've had inquiries to do elopements, say I had one recently for the Dolomites, and even though I've been there once to teach at a workshop, I wouldn't feel that comfortable taking them to locations and knowing where to go. Like I would have to, it would take me a good few days before of recceing, and then before I would feel confident enough to take them. And I think that people get caught out here because they haven't researched enough or come and explored, and it's really busy in certain places. They don't know how to manage the client's expectations in terms of shoes to wear, what to bring, so many little things that can really dampen their experience. So I guess it's just, that's the main thing, is like doing your research and being prepared, and having backup plans. You need like loads of backup plans.
Yeah.
I think for each elopement. And then if you want to break into the industry, I think basically you have to become an expert in it. So I would say, like, basically what I did in 2020 was I spent the majority of it writing blog posts about all the things I could think of that people would need to elope, particularly on Skye, and like things like what to wear on your elopement, and where the best locations on Skye, ultimate elopement guides for locations, and a lot of people ended up finding me through that. And they have to put their trust in you that you know what you're doing. So because often, they don't have a wedding planner, so to speak. So you're their first port of call. So to act like you know exactly what you're doing, that's going to have people put their trust in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier not having the best relationship with social media platforms, Instagram and stuff. Do you ever think, as I do, about land erosion tourism ruining the locals' experience of Skye or any other location for that matter? Like, and do you think we're to blame? Like, as people who post on social media all these places and kind of inspire people to come? It's kind of a deep topic.
Yeah.
But
yes and no. I mean, if you think now, we're probably not the ones that are getting the most views over the content creators that are creating purely for Instagram, if that makes sense.
That's right, content creators, you little fucking bastards. It's your fault. You're sorry, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. So, like, I think living here and you feel a certain level of responsibility and want to protect the landscape. So, leading by example and making sure you don't contribute to the erosion, like don't like park in stupid places, leave things like rubbish, anything like that. Just the kind of simple things, really. Not taking couples somewhere where you're gonna have to call mountain rescue out to come get you.
Is that a thing that's happened?
No, thankfully. But my worry, because mountain rescue out all the time, and my worry is that someone unprepared could come here and something bad could happen, and it would scupper elopement for all of us. Because there have been times, like, let's take the Kerrang, for example, where, like, I check the wind speeds and stuff on top, but sometimes it's been so bad. Like, I've driven there and I saw someone, like, out after the rescue being put into a body bag, they died on the Kerrang, and it's not something I had to meet my couple there because they had, and then I took them somewhere else. And sometimes couples are like really adamant that they want to go there. Like, I had a wedding when it was during one of the storms, and she was like, I really want to do our first look on the Kerrang, and I'm like checking the wind speeds, and I'm like, it's like 60 miles per hour. And I'm like, we had to drive via there to get to another location. And I was like, I will show you. I could not get out of my car, and I like couldn't walk. And I was like, I can't take you onto that ledge. Like, you will die. And I'm pretty sure that's not what you planned for the day. Yeah. But it's like, people are so get something in their head, and then they're so adamant that that's what they want to do, that it's really hard sometimes to be that person that has to deliver the bad news and, you know, be like, sorry, it's not going to happen. But so, and I also think, like, when you live in a place or you're like contributing to the general community, and, you know, you like all the time, and so I don't feel bad about bringing couples coming here for me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
From that, yeah.
Like talking about the Krang, then, like, I think we spoke to David about this when we spoke to him, but you mentioned how a lot of times the couples are adamant they want to shoot there, they maybe want to have their ceremony there, and you know that there's other photographers that might be using there at the same time or similar times. How do you stay motivated to keep pushing your own sort of creative boundaries when you are going to some similar places, or you get asked to do that? Like, how do you stay creative, and also how do you balance giving the couple what they want, as in the ceremony there, against like what you would rather do?
Yeah. I think it's easier doing the, like, with Belle package, where I do the planning and I basically send them like an itinerary proposal. It's all looks very nicely branded and gives them an introduction to how their day could look. And when I have the call, I put an emphasis on their ceremony being in a remote, quiet location, and all the reasons why I think that is possible, like why that should happen. And so most people are quite happy to follow what I want and what I advise. But it might be that they want the Kerrang and they want, you know, to not walk too far. And I'm like, well, let's do sunrise then, when no one else is going to be there. And so that's what I did a few days ago. And it was like the most amazing sunrise I think I've ever seen there, which then lets you see the place in like a whole new light. It like re-inspires you. Yeah. Even though I had no sleep before I went to that elopement, I felt like a zombie after. It was so worth it. So it's like basically managing expectations, being realistic, and being like, look, we could go there for photos after. You've got to imagine that there might be like a few people watching you, but like, surely you want a ceremony that's like just you in the landscape, and you can feel like at one with nature, you know, all of this stuff. Yeah. So I'll try and take them to locations. I don't do that many ceremonies actually on the Kerrang. I try to go elsewhere where they can have a private ceremony.
Yeah. Cool. What's been your like proudest moment as someone who lives on the island who does photography? Like, what is something? What's a step you've taken that's made you feel really good about yourself and your work?
I think the kind of thing that sticks in my head was last year I got a call from a couple where he was a mountain guide, and they'd met climbing in Pin, which is like the toughest Munro in Britain. It's on the Cullen. And he basically proposed to me that they would get married on the beach at Glenbritta, but would I come and basically photograph them climbing it in their wedding attire? And I've gone over, I had like a low-lying fear of heights, I would say. Like, it wasn't like crazy, and I definitely got over it the more I was hiking around the landscape. But the thought of I hadn't been up to the top of the Cullen, so the thought of then doing and climbing the pinnacle, the inaccessible pinnacle, was like really intimidating, to the point where now I'm even thinking about it, my hands are sweating.
Yeah, my hands are sweating too. Oh God.
So thankfully, my pal David was up for doing a little recce with me of in Pin before, so we hired a mountain guide to take us up. And there was a moment, right? So we were set to we got to the top of like the Munro, and then there's like a pinnacle that you can climb. and you have to actually like rock climb. And the guy, like, he had us on ropes, but it was just him. And I'm like, what happens if we fall? And he's like, don't fall. And I'm like, yeah, but let's just say we did. What happens? And he's like, don't fall. And I'm like, okay. And all like, you know, you can see you're like 900 meters high, and there's like a sheer drop down the other side. It was really beautiful. You could see like a kind of cloud inversion, and at least it felt like you would fall into the fluffy white clouds. But there was a moment when I looked back at David, who was behind me climbing, and I was like, what are we doing? Like, and anyway, that went well. So that I felt a bit more confident. Like, it was like 2 weeks later that I went up with this couple.
Mm-hmm.
But as they were starting to climb, I had to then scramble to like another place with my cameras. And there was just one of those moments where I really questioned my life choices, because I was really struggling to climb. Like, I was slipping down this like slab, and yeah, my hands were sweating like they are now. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm going to die on this mountain trying to get photos for this couple. Like, is this...
Oh my God.
But after that, like, I don't know whether it was something that like I feel like I got over like this fear. I felt like I could like do it. It was like a real like buzz. And then that elopement got kind of like taken up by like mass like news reports, and I had like interviews with different like radio stations. Like, it was, you know, featured in like lots of different like newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
And like lots of people around the community that had seen it like in the newspaper would come up and like speak to me about it as well. Yeah. So kind of like cool. a little mini taste of fame in this small little community.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it would be that.
That is cool. What a story. Next time I'm having a little bit of a hard day, I'll just remember this story and I'll just keep my mouth shut.
So what's on the horizon for Belle Art Photography? Like, what's next, and where do you see it going in the next few years?
I'm actually at a little bit of a crossroads now, in terms of where I take it, because I don't know about you, but when you start something and every year you see like growth, like change and growth, like I've basically had that each year, and I feel like this is the first year where I can either like kind of plateau in a sense, like I've got a good work-life balance. We live a semi-easy life here. Like, I could keep going, but with like this, but unfortunately I have something inside me that doesn't let myself do that and just be satisfied and happy with where I am.
Yeah.
So I feel like I constantly need to push and move forward, and it's like not knowing where exactly to take that. We've actually thought about moving from Skye, because one, we do miss the vibrancy of the city, but I actually am really close to my siblings. My sister's kind of spread out, and Skye is just really hard to get anywhere. So, and I also would really like to go back and do an MFA, like my Masters of Fine Art, and kind of see where my personal work could take me.
Okay.
It's not that I want to stop doing elopements, and in my head now I'm trying to figure out a way that I could keep doing that, and that would mean again committing to travel. So there's a lot of decisions to be made in the next year, and I've thought about Elope with Belle looking like me hiring other photographers to do the job, like, you know, creating, like pushing the company and growing it that way. Although there's that little like creativity inside you that's like, no, don't let go of the control. But yeah, I can't say that I actually know exactly where it's going, and this is probably the first year that I've said that, because other years I've always had like this like progression, which has basically always been about money, or there's little things that I've wanted to do, like be published in certain things, and you know, rangefinder was on my like list for the start, and I always had like these little goals, and now they're not really business orientated anymore, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's
Ooh, exciting.
Plus, I've stopped
That is
making
very
babies
exciting.
now, so like I actually can just focus on what I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
No more
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh man, watch this space then, listeners. Damn. Big
Yeah.
things coming. Do you want to do show and tell?
Let's do it. Yeah.
We just go straight in. All right, so show and tell is where I pick a few of your images. How many images
Okay.
have I come? I try to keep it to 3. 4. Okay, about 4. So I'll say why I picked this image, and then if you could fill in any backstory or
Yeah.
anything, give me any information as to the images.
Mhm.
So this first one, I can't remember where I grabbed these. It might have been Instagram, it might be on your website. I can't remember.
Okay.
Totally love this image. And funnily enough, I saw one recently that's very similar to this of the Olympics, of all the runners running on the track, and the photographer was like, "Oh, I decided to overexpose this to get rid of the track, so all you could see is the runners." And I got a very similar vibe to this. It's just the fact that you can't see the water or anything else. It is just a couple perfectly having a nice intimate moment here, and it's black and white, and just that. Yeah, I really love this image. Big fan of negative space as well. But yeah, tell me about this image. I'm assuming it's a destination image because I'm looking at the water and it's kind of got that kind of thickness to it, which
Mhm.
and the light. Yeah. Anyway, tell me about this image if you can remember.
I can actually, and it's funny because I think there's so much tied to it, you know, and you know the couple. But I actually was like friends. Like I went to uni like with this like the bride Khadija, and it was her wedding was in Portugal.
Oh,
in the
okay,
Algarve,
yeah.
and this was like actually a day after session, or
Right.
2 days after, because we were really hungover the day after. Yeah, so that's what I think of when I think of that wedding.
Mhm.
But the beach, like I think I hadn't, not that I hadn't, but like you work with loads of different lights. It's very different than the Highlands, but this is like quite harsh, like more like late morning light, so very easy to overexpose. And I guess I used to feel like I probably played around more and felt safer doing it, especially with people that I knew, with images, more so than I probably do now. Perhaps I work more safe because I know that people want like certain things in the landscape, whereas I felt the freedom because they were my friends to kind of do that.
Yeah.
And so I used to love playing about with Photoshop, and yeah, just like little thing like, and like what was it, like, remember alien skin exposure as well?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, but I used to play around with that a lot as well, and so this would have been a combination of the two. And yeah, I always like that because I guess it kind of looks like it's like, you know, when I used to like sketch and things, it would always be a lot of negative space, and I guess it's about the taking everything away and leaving just the intimacy. So
Yeah.
I can't exactly remember because this would have been 2019. My exact thought process when creating this, just knowing that I would have felt like that freedom to play, and then yeah, it's it's nice actually to be reminded of that, because sometimes you're like, oh, like I want to do that again, you know?
Yeah. And doing the playing with the sort of post-processing on this, do you think there was anything in the back of your mind that was like, if I get rid of everything else and create the image that you were thinking of, was there anything in the back of your mind that was like, I could share this and it could be anywhere, and it wouldn't take my portfolio away from being Scottish Highlands? Do you think that played a part of creating this image?
It did actually, and that would have been why I chose to, if I did have it on my website. So there was, when I decided to go into elopements, I did do quite a, you know, like a change, like a cull of my portfolio.
Yeah.
And a lot of that meant that I would have like just landscape images of the Scottish Highlands because I didn't have enough elopements, and then dispersed with these like with these little like intimate shots that they could be anywhere. So you can have like a small portfolio and do a lot with it. I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. How much post processing did you do on this image? Like, are you like erasing things from the background? Is it quite an extensive post process on this image, or was it pretty easy?
Yeah, it would have been like obviously taking the highlights and everything up to like overexpose it, but then and turn it black and white. But then I would have used the clone tool in Photoshop to kind of get rid of any other thing to make it look like smooth. I used to use the clone tool a lot. And so that's, and also sometimes what I would do then is to use the clone tool to like extend the dress and make it like kind of stretch out a bit and look more dramatic.
Okay. The image I was talking about earlier was the Cameron Spencer's image of the women's 200 race. So just,
I need to see that. I haven't seen it.
I'll put a link to it, or Greg will put a link to it since he does the show notes. But yeah. Anyway, next image. So this is I love any type of like surrealism when it comes to like, well, any type of like wedding work, because they're usually very real events, and I'm interested to see or hear about images that feature weddings that are either done live in some sort of creative way that I hadn't thought about before, or in a studio or whatever. The reason I like this image, and I'm going to assume that this is some studio work in your shed. Maybe I'm wrong. But it does have that kind of fine art vibe that obviously, comes from you learning about fine art. So, tell me about it, because even the motion of what appears to be motion with the dress and even the film grain that you've used to kind of emulate maybe like a canvas or something. And again, big fan of black and white, even though there is some subtle color in the skin tone. It's not fully black and white. But tell me about this image, why you created it, if it was in your shed, or any other things you can tell me about this image.
So that would have been in my shed against one of the backdrops, and that was part of a like self-portrait series that I was doing. And so the story behind that, it's like a series called Fall, and it was just after I found out I was pregnant with our third child, Aria. Again, unexpectedly, and it was like this feeling of not having control. I think like I hadn't really properly planned any of our children. I know you don't really get to, but it just felt very much like losing control. And like that delving into the unknown and going through all of that again. So this, that's why I created this, was like, felt like I was like falling. And I actually somewhere, I think I posted, because I have like another Instagram where I started doing these self-portraits, and I posted the like before, which was just, so I would have had, I have my Hasselblad set up with my phone as the remote control. So I would have had that in one of my hands, and I literally had this little bench that I lay on and lifted my legs up. My legs weren't actually in that position. I photoshopped them to move them to look like I was falling more. Okay. And I hired these dresses. So a woman called Bella Nude, based in Scotland, for workshops, but then I would just use them for my self-portraits as well. Yeah. And it was just like lots of billowing tools, so it was quite easy to work with. But that's a lot of post-processing, like a lot of cloning, a lot of like photoshopping the feet to make it look more, removing the bench. And it's not black and white. Like I like, that kind of like muted palette we talked about in like paintings and things. Yeah. And when you're using like the fine art kind of oil painted backdrop, as well as using the clone tool, you can kind of really get that painterly feel. And then I would have brought it over to alien skin and kind of darkened it up and added more grain, and
Yeah. So obviously a lot of work has gone into this image, but I do like it, and you do put this on your wedding website, I believe.
Yeah.
Did I get this on your web? Yeah, I think I did get this one.
Yeah.
So yeah. Next image, Greg. Let's go for the next image to see what I've got.
Quite similar.
You can tell I fucking love I love black and white images, and I like negative space. Very similar to the first one. I suppose again, it would be the same kind of thought.
What you're talking about with the dress here, I'm assuming, like you've maybe extended that, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right enough. Yeah, repeating shapes, definitely.
Yeah.
Again, another image that's on your website. In fact, is it the first image on your website? It is the first image on your website. Yeah. So definitely a way of attracting the kind of clients that you want.
Yeah.
I'm assuming is the goal of this image, but just the use of the negative space and the way that the light hits the groom's shoulder, I can tell that this is out in the hill. Well, I hope I can tell this is out in the hills, and you have gotten rid of the mountains and the backdrop to solely focus on this couple.
Yeah.
Which is interesting for an elopement photographer whose portfolio is to feature the locations. So tell me about this image and why go this kind of, I'm going to say surrealist type of image when you are an elopement photographer?
Mm-hmm. Well, in my head, the clients that I want are people who have a interest in fine art or like the art in general, and quite like photography is important to them. Mm-hmm. And I know the hills and that are important, but really it's about capturing someone's like intrigue, isn't it? And getting them to stay on your website.
Yeah.
So that kind of is my reasoning for putting that first. I guess it's like drawing people in and making them ask questions about it. How was this taken? It's enough to intrigue someone to ask those questions and look and like go a bit further into my website, because I feel like it's a way of standing out, I guess, from other elopement photographers. And so when they come to my website, they see it's like fine art, I think, first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then this image, the way that I edited it was actually inspired by remember when I wrote Muse and Mirror, because they did like a dancing one on the stairs. It was for like Hasselblad Masters. And I remember seeing that and thinking like, oh, I want to have a play because whenever I see something that like I want to understand, how they did it. So it was a kind of like, I'd already been playing about with negative space and things like that so I wanted to see if I could create that kind of like really dark, like this imagining in my head of them like dancing in space kind of thing, like feel. And so, that was just another way of like playing with Photoshop. And it was still like a lot of playing, experimenting and stuff that I really love to like inspire me. So like cloning, and there would have been like 3 different processes to get it to that point, like 3 different softwares.
You definitely see the fine art background that you've got and all of your images, and like it's quite obvious.
The Muse and Mirror image, did you know, were you just trying to replicate it, or did you know how they did it?
I kind of guessed how they did it. I didn't know how they did it, but I don't I've actually met them since like I went to their workshop last year, Legacy, and they're lovely. Like I really got on with them, but I remember tagging them, like saying inspired by them, and it was just like I don't even know, I can't even remember now what their exact image looked like, but I know that they took it on the stairs in like a chateau, and they had like the dress being really long, and I just love that kind of like, I don't know what it is about it. Like it could be, it's like in a kind of like black hole almost, you know, and like it's just, and it's like kind of get that like feeling, like replicate the feeling rather than replicating the image of like someone of just them, like, and that's it. I mean, yeah.
Because so as of recording, we're actually speaking to them on next Tuesday, and I think
that episode will come out before this. Though.
Yes, so it'll be interesting. But I think one of their images is very similar to this that I've selected for their show and tell. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I know of the vibe, and it definitely is this kind of aesthetic. So I'm going to be asking them about how they do it. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that.
I think we've got one more.
One more, bloody hell! Ah, yeah. So. Image obviously at the Old Manor store. I love this image. It's very much, you know, what a lot of your work is this, rather than the images that I selected earlier for the show and tell. But I like this image because it's just, you know, we talked about the dry robes, we talked about the hand warmers, and we talked about, you know, footwear, and, you know, not, you know, when things are busy. But this is like what I'm assuming later in the year, kind of going towards winter. There's snow on the hills. The dress is hilariously soaked through. Like this, like, and she's got, I mean, is that a top layer? Anyway, her arms look bare. She must have been freezing her tits off. And probably the groom, probably the same. So I want to know the thought process on this image, the story behind getting them up, because that is like an hour walk to get to here, if not more. How did you battle the weather conditions? Tell me all of it.
Right. So, Tashi and Tom, that was early December elopement. And we actually didn't expect the snowstorm that we got up on store. They'd got married at the Kerrang like earlier that day. And Tashi was such a superstar. She just was like adamant that she wanted these photos with her beautiful, beautiful dress without anything on. Like, so she battled through. It was already freezing during the ceremony. And obviously in between, you don't see this, but the photos that I got on store of them, we took in maybe like 3 minutes because it was awful weather, but we just wanted to make the most of it. Hence the movement, you know? And her dress was soaked through because even with the, like, it had been like swished around and like through the snow, through the rain. And then like walking up, she'd had the dry robe over her, but like it's still kind of like coming straight at us. They knew what they wanted in terms of the photos and like where they wanted it. So we just kind of powered through, you know, and when you really are faced with weather as difficult as this or challenging, you can only take a few minutes. Like she would have gone blue. Like you needed to warm her up. So I kind of like it when you get such little time. I don't know. There's some of my favorite photos that like evokes a lot of memories of that day. And I mean, I would never make someone do something, you know, like I am always erring on the side of caution. Like it's going to be like, you know, 50-minute climb, like, are you like in this weather? And it's like, no, we're going to do it. So yeah, if they're happy to, and they're up for it, that gives me energy. And I'm like, yes, let's do it. Let's just try. But it actually, as we were walking up, it was snowing lightly, but it was actually not white. So literally as we got there, this like snowstorm came through. Like we were all kind of huddled up for a bit, like hoods up, like as it was like horizontal, and within minutes this like blanket of white had like covered. So I was like, we're going to need to head down because we're going to lose the path. Like you can barely see it. So we just took these as like quick as possible. But yeah.
Was it quiet up here at this time? Or?
Oh yeah, no one else.
December,
yeah. So what was the bride's reaction then to seeing her dress like this? Because there are obviously some dresses which are fine, but everyone knows the type of material that just like soaks up and shows moisture. Like, did that bother her? Because obviously there's a huge color difference in her dress where it's wet to where it's dry. Did that bother her at all? And if so, how did you? No,
it didn't bother her at all. I think she loved it, and she also, the thing that she commented on, she was one of the clients that I had that. Well, they were both really, but I had more communication with Tashi than I did Tom, but and her email to me after was about how I had been able to capture like their love and their like connection, and in a way that she didn't even think was possible. Like she was so happy with that I mean, to me, that's the best thing I can hear from a couple.
Definitely.
There was no mention of it. It was like, that's part of the story. I never understand when couples, they want to come all the way here, but they don't want to get their dress dirty. I'm like, it's one day. Like if you're going to get the best photos, you really have to embrace like the landscape for what it is.
Yeah. I think if any couple that we've shot eloping, they've always been like, if it's not muddy, I've not done it right. Like, this reminds me of like ones where we've been on a walk with a couple and the dress just looks as if it's getting heavier and heavier with all the water that's taken on. And you're like, I feel bad for this person having to wear this.
Yeah.
But,
perfect.
I think that's the last one.
Yeah, last one. Good. 4. It's close enough. So in closing, I suppose, what would be a good resource for photographers for inspiration, like books or music or TV shows? Like, what's inspired you that might inspire others?
What's inspired? I feel like I used to spend a lot of time like at art galleries and things, and actually obviously there's not so many up here, which is one of the reasons why I miss the city. I have a lot of art books. I'm like an avid reader anyway, so like I really love a good like beautiful book. I've always been inspired by photographers like Francesca Woodman, Sally Mann, like a lot of like art photographers. Like these are like from like the 70s. And I spent time reading like art magazines and things that have like more contemporary photographers, and and like Lorna Simpson, I love her work. And there's just, I think I get inspiration from that. And other than that, like I really just take the inspiration of whatever the landscape's giving me that day and the couple themselves. But yeah, I think like the foundations are kind of built from fine art and that, but it kind of is like on a subconscious level maybe now. And then the rest of the time on the day, all I'm really thinking about is them, how they are with each other, what photos are going to like represent their personality and like their like, just how they are with each other, and then whatever the hell Skye is doing that day.
Yeah,
cool.
I would say less on what other people are doing. I genuinely think just like having kind of like blinkers on and just like focusing on your own path. I know it probably sounds a bit cliche to say that, but I've always done that. I don't really care that much what other people are creating. Like, I'm like, I want to support them, like, especially if they're my friends, but like, I don't want to consume all of that all the time.
Yeah, I get that. It can feel like that in the wedding industry, for sure. I was looking up Lorna Simpson because I'd never heard about her. And I was just having a look, and I'm always very attracted to collages. But after speaking to who were we just speaking to? Who does
Shalice and Mike.
Shalice and Mike. This is a thing that's escaped my thoughts, like collaging and stuff. Have you ever collaged? Is that even the right verb?
I don't know about collage, but I've thought about things as a series, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
And sometimes I like to imagine the work like printed and put like next to each other. Like, so I guess in a sense that's collage, but I've never I guess if you look at it on a level that we do it with Instagram. You know, when you're creating the little like portraits and you put like some together. But that's it's like a curation, isn't it? It's really nice to sometimes curate things together because it changes the narrative. So maybe in that way I've collaged, but I haven't the old fashioned collages. You would like cut stuff out and then like
What do you mean? Yeah, I have never done this in my life. What is going on? Why is this an art form that's just completely escaped me? It sounds so up my street as well. Yeah. Just cutting stuff out from magazines, chilling out, just gluing stuff. Did I miss something? Clearly I have. Anyway, Lorna Simpson, I was having a look at her collages, and the first one, Skye Pinup 2021. What a lovely first image of a star map with a black woman just kind of cut up, revealing a star map behind her. What a great image! And there's so many. I feel like I need to look up collages and start doing collage work because it sounds amazing. Who has to have a collage party? I swear, if you're a listener and you're like, I've never done collage as well, come to our studio. Let's have a collage party one night. I'm well up for that. Anyway,
get a bit of Pritt stick.
Yeah. Anyway, where can people find you and your work online?
My website or social media, I guess. I really only use Instagram. Everything else is just occasionally Facebook, but I just basically, I'm keeping it quite simple. Website or Instagram.
And at what name?
Belle Art Photography.co.uk.
Cool. You don't do personal social media?
No, I've dabbled with various. I have like one at the moment called Art by Fable, which was like, I was going to do like my portraits. I started with my self-portraits, and then I was like, should it be more family? And then it's gone back to no portraits. And it doesn't really know what it is. But
yeah. Okay.
I feel like one Instagram is more than enough to keep up with. So
it really is. I feel too pulled in every direction right now. Yeah. With social media, I just want to quit it all. Anyway,
and on that note, where can people find us?
And on that note, people can find us at perspectivebycinemate.com, Instagram at perspectivebycinemate. Yeah. YouTube, all that kind of good stuff. Thank you to With Jack for sponsoring this episode and every other episode. Thanks. And if you have listened and enjoyed this conversation, please do hit the subscribe button on our YouTube. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, because it really does help. And we actually have merch as well. If you go to our website, you can buy yourself a little cup or some pillows and a hat, I believe, just to support the podcast. I never say that enough, and I hate selling it ourselves, but yes, we don't make any money from doing this podcast, or not much anyway, so every little bit helps. Anyway, we hope to see you in the next episode. However,
in the meantime,
enjoy your life.